Darnell Hayes, a young African-American entrepreneur, stood confidently in a modern boardroom filled with well-dressed investors. He began his pitch, passionately describing his app designed to improve financial services access for marginalized groups. However, his enthusiasm was quickly dampened by cynical comments about his appearance and approach. As Darnell spoke, an older investor interrupted, "Son, I'm not sure you understand our market. This idea seems unrealistic." Another chimed in, "Perhaps you should focus on something more appropriate for your background." The room filled with uncomfortable murmurs and dismissive glances. Feeling his frustration mounting, Darnell tried to redirect the conversation back to the app's potential impact. But it was clear the panel had already made up their minds. After a few more painful minutes, he was curtly thanked for his time and shown the door. Outside the boardroom, Darnell leaned against the wall, his dreams seemingly crushed. His friend Malik approached, having waited in the lobby. "How'd it go, man?" Darnell shook his head. "They didn't even give me a chance, Malik. It's like they decided before I even opened my mouth." Malik put a hand on Darnell's shoulder. "Don't let those suits get you down. Your idea is solid. There's got to be another way." But Darnell could already feel the weight of defeat settling in. "Maybe I should just go back to a regular job. This entrepreneurship thing, it's not for people like us." Later that evening, Darnell arrived home to find his mother at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills. The worry lines on her face deepened as she looked up at him. "How'd the meeting go, honey?" Darnell couldn't bring himself to meet her eyes. "It didn't work out, Mom. I'm sorry." As he watched his mother return to sorting bills, guilt washed over Darnell. He felt responsible for not being able to help financially, for chasing a dream that seemed increasingly out of reach. But as he observed his mother's determination in the face of their financial struggles, something shifted inside him. He realized that his app wasn't just about his personal success. It was about changing the system that kept families like his struggling. Motivated by the sting of rejection and his family's financial struggles, Darnell decided to develop the app on his own. He cleared a space on his cluttered desk, surrounded himself with newspaper clippings about financial inequality, and began sketching out his ideas in a worn notebook. As the days passed, Darnell's determination grew. He spent hours researching, refining his concept, and learning about app development. One afternoon, seeking a change of scenery, he took his work to a local cafe. While deeply focused on his notes, an elderly woman approached his table. "Mind if I join you, young man? All the other seats are taken," she said with a warm smile. Darnell nodded, barely looking up from his work. The woman introduced herself as Agnes and, noticing Darnell's intense concentration, asked about his project. Initially reluctant, Darnell found himself opening up to Agnes. He explained his app idea and the rejection he'd faced. To his surprise, Agnes listened intently, her eyes lighting up with understanding. "You know," Agnes began, "I've seen firsthand how the financial system fails people in our community." She went on to share her own story. Decades of being overlooked by banks, struggling to access loans, and eventually finding ways to help others in similar situations. Darnell listened, captivated. Here was someone who truly understood the problem he was trying to solve. As Agnes spoke, Darnell's excitement reignited. He realized that her experiences could provide invaluable insights for his app. "Agnes," Darnell said, leaning forward, "would you consider being my mentor? Your knowledge could really help shape this project." Agnes beamed, touched by his enthusiasm. "I'd be honored, young man. It's about time someone tackled this issue head-on." They agreed to meet weekly, with Agnes sharing her financial wisdom and Darnell updating her on the app's progress. As they parted ways that first day, Darnell felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had found not just a mentor, but a partner in his mission to change the financial landscape for marginalized communities. Determined to make his app a reality, Darnell began his research at the local library. He immersed himself in books on financial education, business models, and app development. The librarian, noticing his frequent visits, helped him locate additional resources specific to minority-owned businesses and financial inclusion. During one of his study sessions, Darnell stumbled upon a report detailing the specific financial challenges faced by his community. The statistics were sobering, but they also reinforced the importance of his project. He began to compile a list of features his app would need to address these issues effectively. At their next meeting, Darnell and Agnes worked on creating a rough outline of the app. Agnes suggested including a section on financial literacy, drawing from her years of experience helping others navigate complex financial systems. Darnell eagerly incorporated her ideas, seeing a clear path forward for his dream. However, as weeks turned into months, Darnell faced mounting financial pressures at home. His part-time job barely covered expenses, and he was spending most of his free time on the app. One evening, overwhelmed by stress, he considered giving up on the project. Malik, sensing his friend's struggle, invited Darnell out for a walk. As they strolled through their neighborhood, Malik shared his own challenges in trying to start a small business. "Man, I can't even get a loan to buy equipment," Malik sighed. "If your app could help people like me, it would be a game changer." This conversation reignited Darnell's passion. He realized that his app could be a lifeline for people like Malik, aspiring entrepreneurs who were being held back by an unfair system. With renewed determination, Darnell decided to push through his own financial difficulties to complete the app. To make ends meet, Darnell took on additional part-time work and cut back on expenses. He worked late into the night on the app, fueled by coffee and determination. The challenges were numerous: technical issues, design problems, and moments of self-doubt. But Darnell persevered, keeping his ultimate goal in mind. Throughout this period, Agnes remained a steadfast support, offering encouragement and practical advice. Her belief in Darnell's vision never wavered, even when he doubted himself. With her guidance and Malik's constant reminders of the app's potential impact, Darnell found the strength to overcome each obstacle that arose. After a year of tireless work, Darnell and Agnes were finally ready to launch the app. Darnell organized a community event to introduce the platform, inviting local residents, small business owners, and community leaders. He rented a small community center, set up a projector, and prepared demonstrations of the app's features. On the day of the launch, Darnell stood before a diverse crowd of neighbors and friends. His hands shook slightly as he began his presentation, but his voice grew stronger as he spoke about the app's mission. He demonstrated how users could access financial education resources, connect with local financial mentors, and even apply for microloans through partnering organizations. The audience listened intently, many nodding in recognition of the challenges Darnell described. When he shared stories of beta testers who had already benefited from the app, including a single mother who used it to create her first budget and a young entrepreneur who secured funding for his startup, the room erupted in applause. Agnes took the stage next, speaking about the importance of financial literacy and community support. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom had faced similar struggles. As she concluded, urging everyone to download and share the app, the enthusiasm in the room was palpable. To Darnell's surprise, a local reporter who had heard about the event through social media was in attendance. After the presentation, she approached Darnell for an interview, eager to share the story of this innovative, community-focused app with her readers. As the event wound down, Darnell found himself surrounded by people sharing their own financial struggles and expressing gratitude for his efforts. Malik clapped him on the back, grinning broadly. "You did it, man. This is going to change lives." In the days following the launch, word spread quickly through the community. Downloads of the app surged, and positive reviews began pouring in. Users praised its user-friendly interface and the relevance of its content to their daily financial challenges. Local community organizations reached out to Darnell, interested in partnering to promote financial literacy through the app. A nearby college even invited him to speak to their business students about entrepreneurship and social impact. As Darnell watched the app's user base grow and received messages of thanks from people it had helped, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The rejection he had faced from the investors seemed like a distant memory. He had created something truly meaningful, not just for himself, but for his entire community. As word of Darnell's app spread, its user base grew rapidly. Success stories began to emerge. Small businesses securing loans, families learning to budget effectively, and individuals improving their credit scores. The app's impact was tangible, and it caught the attention of larger financial institutions and media outlets. Darnell found himself fielding calls from investors, including some who had previously rejected him. Their sudden interest was both validating and unsettling. He hesitated to accept their offers, remembering the dismissive treatment he had received before. Instead, he focused on organic growth and maintaining the app's community-centric approach. Inspired by the app's success and the ongoing needs of his community, Darnell decided to organize a conference on financial inclusion. He envisioned a platform where community members, financial experts, and policymakers could discuss the systemic issues preventing equitable access to financial services. Planning the conference was a massive undertaking. Darnell reached out to local community leaders, financial literacy experts, and even some progressive politicians. He secured a venue, arranged for speakers, and worked tirelessly to ensure the event would be accessible to all members of the community. As the conference date approached, Darnell received an unexpected message. It was from the group of investors who had initially rejected his idea. They requested a meeting, expressing interest in his now successful venture. Darnell was conflicted. Part of him wanted to ignore the message, but he also saw an opportunity to potentially affect change from within the system. After careful consideration and discussions with Agnes and Malik, Darnell decided to take the meeting. He approached it with caution, determined to stand his ground and not compromise the values that had driven his success. The day before the conference, Darnell sat in the same boardroom where he had faced rejection a year earlier. This time, however, he entered with confidence, armed with data on his app's success and its impact on the community. The investors listened attentively, their earlier skepticism replaced by keen interest. As the meeting concluded, Darnell felt a mix of emotions. He was proud of how far he had come, but also wary of the investors' motives. He left the boardroom without committing to anything, his mind already turning to the conference and the real work that lay ahead, continuing to serve and empower his community through financial education and access. Darnell entered the sleek boardroom, his demeanor calm and confident, a stark contrast to his previous visit. The investors, dressed in expensive suits, greeted him with forced smiles and firm handshakes. Darnell took his seat, opened his laptop, and began his presentation without preamble. He started by showcasing the app's user statistics. Thousands of downloads, high user retention rates, and an impressive number of successful financial transactions facilitated. The investors leaned forward, their interest piqued by the numbers. Darnell then shifted to impact stories. He spoke about Maria, a single mother who used the app to secure a small business loan and open her own bakery. He mentioned Jason, a recent college graduate who improved his credit score and bought his first home. With each story, the atmosphere in the room changed subtly. As he concluded the presentation, Darnell addressed the elephant in the room. "When I first came here, you didn't see the potential in this idea or in me. You missed an opportunity to be part of something transformative. But today, I'm not here to seek your approval. I'm here to show you what you overlooked: the power of diversity in business and the untapped potential in underserved communities." The lead investor, visibly uncomfortable, cleared his throat. "Mr. Hayes, we admit we may have been hasty in our initial assessment. We're prepared to offer you substantial funding to scale your operation." Darnell paused, considering his words carefully. "I appreciate the offer, but any partnership would need to align with my vision. This isn't just about profit. It's about changing lives and creating opportunities." He outlined his conditions: community reinvestment, diverse hiring practices, and a commitment to financial education initiatives. The investors exchanged glances, clearly hesitant about these stipulations. As the meeting progressed, it became apparent that while the investors were interested in the app's success, they were reluctant to embrace its core mission fully. They attempted to steer the conversation towards monetization strategies and rapid expansion plans. Darnell listened patiently, but with each suggestion, he became increasingly certain that their visions were incompatible. The investors hadn't changed. They were simply chasing the next profitable venture. Standing up, Darnell closed his laptop. "Thank you for your time, gentlemen, but I don't think this is going to work. My app's success is rooted in its commitment to the community. That's not something I'm willing to compromise." With that, he walked out of the boardroom, leaving behind a group of stunned investors. As he stepped into the elevator, Darnell felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had stayed true to his principles and was more determined than ever to forge his own path. The day of the conference arrived, and the venue buzzed with excitement. Darnell stood backstage, taking deep breaths to calm his nerves. The auditorium was packed with community members, financial experts, and even a few curious investors who had heard about the event. As Darnell stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. He began his keynote speech by sharing his personal journey, from rejection to the creation of a successful, community-focused financial app. The audience listened intently as he described the app's features and its impact on users' lives. But this isn't just about an app, Darnell emphasized. It's about addressing the systemic barriers that have kept our communities from achieving financial stability and growth. He then introduced Malik, who had successfully started his own business with the help of the app. Malik's story resonated deeply with the audience. He spoke about the challenges he faced as a young, Black entrepreneur trying to secure funding. Thanks to Darnell's app, I not only got the loan I needed, but I also gained the financial knowledge to make my business thrive, Malik concluded to enthusiastic applause. Next, Agnes took the stage. Her presence commanded respect, and her words carried the weight of decades of experience. She spoke passionately about the importance of financial literacy and how it can break cycles of poverty. What Darnell has created, she said, her voice strong and clear, is more than just technology. It's a tool for empowerment and change. As Agnes shared stories of community members whose lives have been transformed by newfound financial knowledge, many in the audience were visibly moved. Some wiped away tears, while others nodded in recognition of their own struggles. During the Q&A session, attendees asked thoughtful questions about expanding the app's reach, partnering with local organizations, and addressing specific financial challenges faced by different demographic groups. Darnell answered each question with confidence and clarity, demonstrating his deep understanding of both the technology and the community's needs. As the conference was wrapping up, Darnell noticed a familiar face in the crowd, one of the investors who had initially rejected his idea. The investor approached him after the closing remarks, extending his hand. "Mr. Hayes, I have to admit, I was wrong about you and your vision. You've created something truly impactful here." Darnell shook his hand firmly, but maintained his composure. He thanked the investor for attending, but made it clear that his focus remained on growing the app organically and staying true to its mission. As people filed out of the auditorium, many stopped to thank Darnell, share their own stories, or express interest in getting involved. The energy in the room was palpable, a sense of hope and possibility that Darnell had always envisioned, but was now seeing become a reality. In the days following the conference, Darnell was inundated with positive feedback and media requests. His app was gaining national attention, and he felt a mix of excitement and pressure to maintain its integrity as it grew. One evening, as Darnell was reviewing potential partnerships, he received an anonymous phone call. The voice on the other end was hesitant but determined. "Mr. Hayes, I have information you need to hear about the investors who rejected you initially." The caller, who identified himself only as a former employee of the investment firm, revealed a disturbing pattern of discrimination within the company. He detailed instances where promising projects by minority entrepreneurs were systematically overlooked or undervalued. The investor's recent interest in Darnell's app, he explained, was merely an attempt to save face and capitalize on its success. Darnell listened intently, his mind racing. While part of him had suspected this, hearing it confirmed stirred a mix of anger and resolve. He thanked the caller for the information and assured him of his anonymity. The next day, Darnell called an urgent meeting with Agnes and Malik. In Agnes's small living room, surrounded by potted plants and family photos, Darnell shared what he had learned. "This isn't just about me or our app anymore," he said, pacing the room. "It's about exposing a system that's keeping countless innovators from marginalized communities from succeeding." Agnes nodded gravely, her eyes reflecting years of witnessing similar injustices. Malik, usually laid back, sat up straight, his expression hardening. "So what's the plan, man? We can't let them get away with this." After hours of discussion, they formulated a strategy. They would gather testimonies from other entrepreneurs who had faced similar discrimination, compile data on funding disparities, and build a comprehensive case exposing the systemic issues within the investment world. Over the next few weeks, Darnell, Agnes, and Malik worked tirelessly. They reached out to their network, conducted interviews, and collected statistical evidence. Each story they heard reinforced their determination to bring about change. As they compiled the information, a clear pattern emerged, one of consistent bias against minorities and women in the world of venture capital and investment. The data was stark, showing significant disparities in funding allocation based on race and gender. With a solid body of evidence in hand, Darnell faced a crucial decision. Exposing this information could have far-reaching consequences, potentially making powerful enemies in the financial world. But staying silent would mean being complicit in a system that continued to marginalize talented individuals from underrepresented communities. After a long night of reflection, Darnell made his choice. He would use his platform and newfound influence to shed light on these practices. It was time to challenge the status quo and push for real change in the financial industry. Darnell's decision to expose the discriminatory practices in the investment world set off a chain of events that would change the landscape of finance and entrepreneurship. He organized a press conference, inviting journalists from major news outlets and financial publications. On the day of the conference, Darnell stood before a sea of cameras and microphones, his heart racing but his resolve firm. He began by sharing his own story of rejection and subsequent success, then unveiled the damning evidence he and his team had collected. "This isn't just about one company or a few bad actors," Darnell declared. "It's about a systemic problem that has been holding back innovation and progress in our communities for far too long." He presented statistics, shared anonymized testimonies, and outlined the pattern of discrimination they had uncovered. The room erupted with questions as journalists clamored for more details. Darnell handled each query with poise, backed by the thorough research his team had conducted. The story spread like wildfire, dominating headlines and sparking heated debates across social media platforms. In the days that followed, Darnell faced intense scrutiny. The investment firm he had exposed launched an aggressive PR campaign to discredit him, painting him as an opportunist seeking revenge for a single rejection. Some media outlets questioned his motives, while others hailed him as a whistleblower. Amidst the storm, Darnell received anonymous threats warning him to back down. Concerned for his safety, Agnes and Malik insisted he take precautions, but Darnell refused to be silenced. "If we back down now, nothing will change," he told them, his determination unwavering. Support began to pour in from unexpected quarters. Other entrepreneurs came forward with their own stories, corroborating Darnell's claims. Civil rights organizations rallied behind him, recognizing the broader implications of his fight. Even some industry insiders, uncomfortable with the status quo, began to speak out. The pressure on the investment firm and the broader industry intensified. Calls for investigation and reform grew louder. Darnell found himself at the center of a movement, his app and his story becoming symbols of the fight for equity in the financial world. Despite the challenges and threats, Darnell stood firm. He continued to speak out, participated in panel discussions, and worked with advocacy groups to push for concrete changes in investment practices. His app, meanwhile, continued to grow, serving as a tangible example of the potential that exists when barriers to entry are removed. As the controversy raged on, Darnell realized that his journey had evolved far beyond his original vision. What started as a personal mission to create a helpful app had become a catalyst for systemic change. The road ahead was uncertain and likely fraught with more challenges. But Darnell was ready to face them, buoyed by the support of his community and the knowledge that he was fighting for something much bigger than himself. The aftermath of Darnell's expose sent shockwaves through the financial industry. As public pressure mounted, regulatory authorities launched a formal investigation into the investment firm's practices. The probe expanded to examine systemic discrimination across the venture capital landscape. Darnell's evidence proved instrumental in the investigation. Interviews with former employees and a thorough audit of the firm's records corroborated his claims. The findings were damning. A clear pattern of bias against minority and women entrepreneurs emerged, with staggering disparities in funding allocations. As the investigation progressed, several high-ranking executives at the investment firm were forced to resign. The company faced hefty fines and was mandated to implement comprehensive diversity and inclusion programs. More importantly, the case sparked a broader conversation about equity in finance. Throughout this period, Darnell continued to advocate for change. He testified before congressional committees, sharing his experiences and offering recommendations for policy reforms. His articulate and passionate speeches resonated with lawmakers and the public alike. The controversy turned Darnell into a reluctant celebrity in the world of finance and tech. He was invited to speak at national conferences on entrepreneurship and financial inclusion. At one such event, he delivered a powerful keynote address, emphasizing the untapped potential in marginalized communities and the need for systemic change. Our success isn't just about individual achievement, Darnell declared to a packed auditorium. It's about creating a level playing field where everyone has a fair shot at turning their ideas into reality. His app continued to thrive, expanding its user base and features. It became a model for inclusive fintech, with other companies seeking to emulate its community-focused approach. Darnell used this success to launch a venture fund specifically aimed at supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs, providing not just capital, but mentorship and resources. As the dust settled, Darnell found himself reflecting on his journey. He thought about the initial rejection that had spurred him to action, the long nights of coding and planning, the support of Agnes and Malik, and the risks he had taken to expose the truth. One evening, as he sat with his mother in their family home, she handed him a small box. Inside was the watch his late father had worn, a family heirloom. "Your father would be so proud of you," she said, tears in her eyes. "You didn't just chase your dreams. You opened doors for others to chase theirs." Darnell fastened the watch around his wrist, feeling its weight, a reminder of where he came from and how far he had come. He knew that his work was far from over. There were still battles to be fought, minds to be changed, and systems to be reformed. But as he looked at his mother's proud smile, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose. The app that had started as a solution to help his community had become a catalyst for change on a national scale. Darnell Hayes, once rejected and overlooked, had not only achieved his own success, but had paved the way for countless others to follow. As he embraced his mother, he silently renewed his commitment to continue fighting for a more equitable and inclusive financial future for all.